Today we're going to be talking about choosing the right colors for your painting. Now, when I talk about choosing the colors for a painting, what I mean is selecting a smaller set of colors that suggest the mood, the light, the atmosphere of the painting. Typically, when I paint a painting, almost all the time, I'm using my full palette. And I have 10 colors plus white. And I have 2 yellows, cad yellow, yellow ochre, an orange, cadmium orange, 3 reds, cadmium red medium, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, and 2 blues, ultramarine blue and phthalo blue, and a violet, dioxazine purple, and viridian hue, which is really just phthalo green. And what I have, all these colors are very pure, except for the yellow ochre and burnt sienna. They are earth colors. They have all 3 primaries in them, with one color dominating. So the burnt sienna is a red, so it's red with a little bit of yellow and blue in it. Yellow ochre is a yellow with a little bit of blue and red in it. Now, technically, burnt sienna and yellow ochre are made from minerals, so you're not really mixing the exact color, but you can get close. So when you're using your colors, keep in mind that they already have the 3 primaries in them. So the more colors you add to them, just the grayer it's going to get. But the other colors are very pure, and they're primary and secondary colors: yellow, red, blue, both blues. And then the secondary colors, green, violet, and yellow, or green, violet, and orange, are very pure also. And I get cleaner colors with those. But sometimes you want to use a smaller selection of colors to change the mood. We'll look at a few paintings here. This is by John Francis Murphy, born in 1853, 1921, American painter. And here he's using a very limited earth palette. I'm guessing, but he probably has some kind of earth red, English red, burnt sienna, and black for the blue. Not using blue, but black. And then some kind of yellow. I don't think it'd be cad yellow. I don't think they had it yet. Maybe. Probably a chrome yellow, which is a lead yellow that was pretty strong. Plus white. But I don't see a lot of different colors than that. Black, when you add white to it and you put it in context to everything else, like up here in the sky, it's going to look more blue. And black and yellow ochre down here to mix the greens that are in the grass. Everything is very muted, but there's still 3 distinct primaries in there. And is using a more muted primary palette to get the mood here. He does have the very warm sky against the somewhat cooler trees and ground. And that warm and cool contrast really gives you the sense of sunlight and shadow, but a definite mood here using a definite set of colors. Now, if we contrast that to a painting by John Frost, who's an California Impressionist, 1890 to 1937, he's using a more pure palette. 3 primaries and probably the 3 secondaries in white. Don't think he's using any earth colors or black, maybe, but he's relying on the more pure colors because the colors look more pure. They look more saturated, more vibrant. Burnt sienna, ochre, black, raw umber would look totally different. You could still get the same sense of sunlight, but it'd be a different mood. Colors would be less saturated. This is really nice painting, using that real cool color in the shadows, all the shadows, and the real warm sunlit area to create the temperature contrast, warm and cool. Now, he does have muted colors in here. He's got muted greens, some muted yellow, yellow oranges, even some muted violets in there. And here he's just using complements, green and red, yellow and violet, to get that more muted color. So he has a combination of very strong saturated color and some muted colors. If it's all really bright colors, all extremely high saturation, all the colors will be screaming at you. So a little bit of muted or desaturated color next to the really strong color is much more effective. Let's look at a few more. This is John Francis Murphy again. Same color palette, maybe a bit of blue in here. Looks to be more of a Prussian blue, which is different from ultramarine, but different reasons to use them. But the same feeling here, same sense of atmosphere and time of day and light. Very, very strong contrast. So another John Francis Murphy. Again, using the black to mute the colors, the greens, the reddish road, earth color and black. The sky looks pretty much black and white, maybe with a little bit of yellow ochre in it. But the values, shapes, composition, really good. The old adage that a good composition, really good values, and just a little bit of color makes a beautiful painting, and that's what you have here, very muted color. And this is by Dwight Tryon, another American tonalist. He was 1849 to 1925. Here he's using a bit more than just the black, ochre, and burnt sienna. Probably has black and burnt sienna and ochre, but maybe a bit of a stronger yellow, maybe a stronger red, and the violet looks a bit more saturated than what you can get with an earth mixture to create a violet. A lot of times, if I have a limited palette of, let's say, ivory black, alizarin crimson, cad yellow light, or yellow ochre, I can use alizarin crimson and black and get a really nice muted violet. And that could be what that is back in there. Again, the strong sunlit clouds showing the time of day, the sun kind of going down. Could be coming up, but it looks like it's more of a sunset. Not much depth as far as getting the shadows lighter and cooler. They're just as dark and same temperature as they are up front. So he's not going for a lot of depth atmosphere that way. But just beautiful, subtle color changes in the field here and a strong sense of light, which the really dark background helps. He's going really dark in the distant shadows and keeping it really dark to create that contrast with the lighthouse. It's another Dwight Tryon, more atmospheric. He's having the shadows get lighter as they recede. Again, I have no idea what colors he's using. Some stronger colors, maybe some stronger greens. The violet, this could still be like green and alizarin crimson, two complements to mix that more muted, kind of a violet looking green. The real bright red and orange here. So this is some kind of cad red with yellow, but still using black, I think, to modify the colors. Nothing wrong with using black. If you've taken workshops or gone to art school, probably told don't use black. And the reason is you shouldn't use black early on is because you rely on it just to make it dark. You're not thinking through what colors are in the shadow, but just relying on black to making everything dark, and that gives you dead color. When you understand mixing colors, then using black as a color is really helpful, not just making things grayer or darker, but black, when used as a blue, can make nice greens, violets, a lot of nice colors with black. And it can be used as a modifier too. Here's a painting by Carlos de Hayes. He was a Spanish painter, 1829 to 1898. And probably used black in here, black with some kind of transparent red for the shadows to keep them thin. And maybe some black to modify the colors here. But you have to be careful when you're using the black to modify or mute the colors. It can just deaden the colors too much. And there's not much color in the shadow. Of course, this photograph may not accurately show the shadow, but definitely have the value contrast of the foreground shadows against the background shadows to create the mood and the atmosphere. But a more limited palette still, probably a green along with a blue and black and yellow and probably burnt sienna. Now this painting is by L. Burge Harrison. He's an American tonalist also. He used brighter colors though in a lot of his paintings. More pure colors, not so much the earth colors. Here the blue is the primary color with probably, I don't know, a little bit of red and yellow. The darks here dark enough that it creates more foreground, a bit of background, and then the farthest distant background in the mountain. So simplified the shape, simplified the values, and the color also very, very simplified. Maybe just black, blue, and yellow. Don't know, but very limited. And sometimes a more limited palette allows you to mix more simple colors and the painting reads better than having too many colors thrown into your painting. This is another Burge Harrison. And again, you can see his colors are a lot stronger. The violets in the building and the road, the yellow and yellow oranges. More pure colors, maybe using a burnt sienna as a modifier to mute the colors as well. It's another John Frost. More pure colors here, no black. And probably no earth colors either. More pure primary, secondary colors in white. And using the complements you get to create the grayer colors in there. It's another John Frost. More limited palette, but a very strong, warm and cool. Got the yellow, yellow green, yellow, yellow orange, and orange sky. More of a blue and orange painting. There's a little bit of blue and orange in everything. Doesn't mean it didn't use other colors, but you can set out and have a complementary color scheme where the sky here is more orange, yellow orange, and blue. And the shadow here, the foreground and the mountains are more orange, muted with some blue. Again, could be more colors in there, but not a lot. Keeping the color simple helps the painting read better. Alison Clark, another California Impressionist, 1876, 1949. Again, more pure colors. There's no black in the darks because you can see a color in those darks. It's a really dark blue, blue-green. And again, a lot of blue and orange here, yellow-orange with the blue and some greens. Some of these brighter paintings can look like there's more colors on the palette, but they don't have to have them. Very, very limited palette and still come up with a lot of variety of strong colors. Now I have some color studies that I've been doing for some images, trying to figure out colors I'm wanting to use. This was a scene in New Mexico, and these are small, 6x3, 5x4, not very big. And I'm trying to work out what I want to use as far as big shapes and colors go. And my big color here I was going for was violet and orange. It was in the fall, so there was a lot of yellow, yellow, orange, orange, red, orange. So just doing a real quick, using a palette knife a lot and some brush, and just using orange and violet. Pushing more violet in the background and more orange in the foreground. A bit more violet in the shadows and more orange in the light areas. Sky also is violet. So just violet, orange, and white. And it sets up the big values, the big shapes, and the big colors I want to work with. Now I can use more colors. Here is phthalo blue, alizarin crimson, and yellow ochre. Same scene. I'm just trying a different set of colors. And using the phthalo blue instead of ultramarine, just to change it up. In these color studies, I really try and think outside the box to come up with maybe different color combinations I wouldn't ordinarily. Now, if I choose this color scheme for this painting, what I'm really choosing is these three colors plus white to block the painting in. To get everything covered, show the big, simple dark and light areas. Then I will typically use the full palette to finish. And the rest of the colors become maybe accent colors. But I'm using these three to get all the big shapes, the important big shapes and values all filled in, and using the other colors then as more modifiers. Here, again, same image. I'm using ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, cad yellow light. So this is a pure color palette. The colors are pure. There's no earth colors or black. But I can get more muted or grayed colors by mixing all three together with one dominating. Here the alizarin crimson and blue kind of dominates, and the yellow is muting the color. Here I'm using the violet from the alizarin crimson and blue, both in the shadow and the sunlight, and the cad yellow light and alizarin crimson for the trees, grass, a little bit of blue in the yellow and crimson as well to create some muted green. And it gives me an idea of just how the big shapes would look in different colors. There's a painting in southern Utah, and this is burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and black. And I'm using black to mix the greens, black and yellow ochre, and burnt sienna with some black and yellow ochre for the sides of the barns. This is black and yellow ochre for the sunlit trees. Burnt sienna with a little bit of black, not much at all, and or some yellow ochre for the sunlit cliffs. So again, the black becomes the blue in the palette, and the yellow ochre and the burnt sienna are the yellow and the red. And that gives me a more muted feel. Then I did same thing with a more primary, more pure color. This is ultramarine blue, probably a alizarin crimson, and cad yellow light. So the red is alizarin crimson instead of cad red medium. And I could mix in somewhat the same colors, but they're just more pure colors. They make a stronger statement color-wise, a lot stronger. The earth palette, a bit more muted. The values are more, not more important, but the values take over more because the color is so limited. Here's another one I did a while back, did some color studies for. This is a little bit of pure and earth colors, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, cad yellow light. And these are, I'm looking for primary colors. So my red is the burnt sienna, cad yellow light's the yellow, and the ultramarine is the blue. And so more pure color, with the exception of the burnt sienna. And that keeps, especially the background, a bit more muted. It also helps me mute the grass a bit more. My strongest color would be the ultramarine blue and cad yellow, so I've got a stronger yellow-green, although I did mute that a little bit with the burnt sienna, and added a touch of burnt sienna to the sky as well. So I was keeping this a bit more muted. Now I can come back after the block-in with these colors and add some stronger colors, especially in the foreground, but also in the mountains. Now this is the same image where I'm using pure colors. So ultramarine blue. Well, here I'm using split complementary. You got red, orange, yellow, orange, and blue. So my red orange is probably the cad red medium with some cadmium orange, and pushing the red a bit more towards orange, so it's a reddish orange, then yellow orange, and then blue. So this is not primary colors. This is blue, which is primary, and then yellow, orange, and red orange, which are tertiary colors. So, and this gives me a mixture of colors that maybe I wouldn't think about using, just to see what happens. And again, this is 5x3, 6x4, so very small. Spend maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes on it, and it gives me a totally different feel from that. A different view of the colors. Here's another painting. This is a blue, violet, orange, yellow, green. It's a triadic color scheme on the color wheel. And I do have some videos where I talk about color schemes on the color wheel. Triadic, split complementary, and analogous. And you can dig that up and look at that. where I explain those. Again, it gives me a different idea of colors to start with. It's not that I'm going to only use these colors to paint this painting bigger, but I will definitely start with these colors. Then I can use the other colors to kind of push and pull a little bit different directions. Or just as accent colors to make something pop a bit more. But this gives me an overall color harmony and helps me think outside the box color-wise, using colors maybe together that I wouldn't ordinarily use together. Here's a scene in Scotland from reference when I went to Scotland a few years ago. And this is a violet, yellow, orange, yellow, green, and it's a split complementary also. The complement would be violet and yellow. And I'm keeping the violet and I'm splitting the yellow, either side of yellow on the color wheel, yellow, orange, and yellow, green, plus white. And again, it gives me a limited set of colors where I can focus on the values, but still have good temperature contrast to suggest the sunlight, and using colors differently than I normally would, just to make more interesting paintings, more interesting color. Last one here. This is also from a reference in Scotland. And my palette here is not as limited. Phthalo blue, cad yellow light, orange, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, and violet, plus white. And I wanted the phthalo blue and alizarin crimson just to shake things up, not using the cad red medium. But the phthalo blue gives me a different blue, and it reacts differently with cad yellow. It gives me different greens and yellow greens in the grass. And then the burnt sienna and alizarin crimson, plus a little bit of the phthalo, gives me the color of the rocks, and the more reddish rocks back in here. So it helps to think through what colors you're using on your palette. Typically, again, I use my full palette, but once in a while I will pick a limited color scheme to start my painting, to get it all blocked in and create the color harmony and mood that I want.